Hi, I'm Iulian Alexandru, CEO of Empower BI. Welcome to the presentation of our CFO mobile app powered by MicroStrategy. As a CFO or financial controller, I need to see my company's performance, look through my income statement and balance sheets, and finally evaluate costs. Let's dig in. The first thing I do is I want to look at my overall company performance. I see my revenues, costs, financial items. I'm able to see an evolution of them. If I just tap the screen, see how they're doing in the last month of 2011, how they did the whole year, how they are versus budget, and how is the variance. Also, with the top of the screen, I'm able to influence the bottom side. For example, if I just want to see costs, I tap on costs, and in the bottom, I only see my cost of goods sold and operating changes. Again, I can see an yearly evolution of them. I see that I had huge spikes of COGS in April and in August. The rest of the year was quite linear, while my operating costs were linear throughout the year. I'm also able, if I need to compare my performance of various accounts. By just swiping right, I'm able to see all my sales accounts and see whether they're budget or growth leaders by comparing them with the values from last year or with budgeted values. For most of my accounts are going into the budget leaders and growth leaders quadrant. However, I see my sales of raw materials, while it is doing quite well versus budget, it hasn't increased as much as compared to last year. I will need to check into that. Next thing I want to do is see a bit of my income statement. So if I just tap it, I'm taken into my income statement where I can see all the grouping of my accounts. It's a high level P&L here. So for example, I see that my sales of retail have been spiking in quarter number 4. However, I'm way below budget for them. Also, I'm able to see the quarterly evolution of my year-to-date budget index. So for example, in quarter number 2, I was at 39.5% year-to-date on my budget index. If I swipe, I can also see the comparison to last year's value. I see a huge spike in quarter number 4 for sales of retail as compared to last year. Let's look at operating costs. These are quite linear. I see a little bit of increase in each of my quarters this year. Probably it's because I've hired a couple of new personnel and their costs are being seen. Let's also look at COGS. Well, here we have a bit of a downfall from the first quarter to the second, and then finally our last quarter is quite low, especially also compared to last year. Let's go look into our balance sheet. Our balance sheet is showing us our balance sheet accounts. So for example, if I want to look at my domestic vendors, I can tap them, and you see the bottom side changing. And again, it's a quarterly evolution where I'm looking at my net change and my budget amount for each quarter. In the bottom side of the screen, I see a quarterly evolution for my last 3 years. And of course, I'm able to tap it and get the actual values if I want to. Okay, so I've seen my balance sheet. I've looked at some of my accounts. Again, I can change as many as I want to and analyze them. Now let's look at our cost breakdown. In here I have all my costs of retail, materials, my operating, my personnel expenses, and I can compare these costs. Right now I'm looking at my cost of retail and comparing it with my operating expenses and personnel expenses. Let's actually take cost of retail out and just look at operating expenses and personnel expenses, and maybe add in here cost of resources. Okay, so it looks like my personnel exchanges were the highest each quarter, with about 192,000, and shortly after come my operating expenses. Again, this is for net change, but I can also look at my year-to-date index. Let's look a little bit here, as well as my year-to-date versus budget index. So when it comes to the difference versus budget, for example, for my personal costs, I was at 60% of what I budgeted in the first quarter, and then I had a spike down. Okay, this concludes the presentation of our CFO app. Again, this app and its screens are highly customizable. We can add as much information as needed, or we can remove some of it. We actually have implemented this app with several of our customers with a higher, deeper level of analysis, a couple more screens, more details, and a bit more interaction. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in the next demos.